cult members, and welcome to Pop Culture Cult. I'm Sean.
I'm Janice.
And welcome to our spoiler review of the finale of The Stand called The Circle Closes.
I think that's what it did.
I have lots of mixed feelings about this episode,
Okay.
and the series as a whole, which we'll get into towards the end. But I want to know, as our resident Stephen King expert, I want to know how you feel about this episode. Oh, by the way, we're going to talk about spoilers.
Spoilers.
I mean, the book's been out. There's been another series.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
Whatever.
However, if you've read the book or watched the other series, then you have absolutely no idea what's going to happen in this episode. Nope. So from a, original source standpoint, I'm kind of, one of my favorite parts of the story is how Tom gets Stu home.
Right.
And that didn't happen at all.
Yeah, that just gets glossed
they
over.
just appear. And Stu's leg he's limping, but
Right.
it's, and so from a Stephen Kingophile, I was sad that part of the story wasn't told.
Right.
I said it was my favorite. And Stu and Franny going back to Algonquin does happen in the book, but not at all like what happened.
Right.
I think it was okay. I'm really trying hard to separate my feelings on how it really
That's
ended.
fair. That's fair.
Versus how it.
Engaging the story that was being told.
Yeah, and I'm having a hard time with that.
Okay.
So
I don't feel so bad then.
Okay.
I've said all along that I've been enjoying the series,
Mm-hmm.
and I really liked the completion of the New Vegas arc from last week.
Right.
And I knew that this was going to be epilogue kind of feeling,
Right, because the big thing happened.
The big thing has happened, and now, and the episode starts with the birth of Franny's child,
Mm-hmm.
which she names Abigail, and the idea of her writing essentially her early life story to her in the future. I really like that.
Yeah.
And I really like them discussing, like, she got sick with
Captain Tripp's
Uncle Trevor. I was close. Captain Trips.
Nailed it.
But then recovering and like telling
Right.
that part of the story,
Yep.
I really appreciated that, because that was one of my concerns going forward. I'd like to hear the story of what happens going forward
Right.
after everything has been done.
Yep.
I also want to hear the story about what's going on in Europe and what's going on in Asia and what's going on in
Right.
Africa, because
Right.
it's a worldwide thing. And we get a little bit of that with them going to the island.
Yeah, the tribe, which I think we talked about last episode.
The episode
and
before.
how that was how they ended the last series, the 90s series.
Yeah,
And I think that I don't remember if they talk about it in the book, because I keep thinking about just the last miniseries and that it was there, so I can't remember if it was also in the book. But yeah, it was interesting that they did that.
I'm okay with it. I'm okay, because that's what was the question. It actually answers a question that I had.
Yeah.
So I was okay with that part. From then on, I'm confused as hell. Like, and we've talked about this, that this show should be 20 episodes and not 9.
Right.
And explaining Stu coming back with Tom saving Stu, you need to have that conversation. You need to show that. And then them deciding, when Franny decides, they jump from, so
It's Christmas time.
it's Christmassy time, whatever. And then they talk about the snow in February at the July 4th party that they're at by the lake.
Right.
And so they are telling you the timetable wise, but Franny goes from Stu's back to let's leave.
Yeah.
From one scene to the next, and there's no like her like spending time contemplating what her feelings are, and you need to have that conversation if you're going to make this decision to go back to Maine.
Yeah.
You have to have that conversation with her, even if I know it's mental dialogue that's really hard to do.
Yeah.
And you've already set the groundwork for that with her writing the story to baby Abigail.
Right.
That
they didn't continue on with it.
Right. So you
explain,
just, if you do one scene of her, Valentine's Day, you know, whatever, just to kind of give us or Easter or whatever.
Yeah.
Just kind of like, I'm feeling this pull to go to Maine.
Right.
Even it's a 30-second thing.
Yeah.
And I feel so much better about the episode than that.
In the book, I mean, so they painted themselves in this series into a bit of a corner because Lucy. So they finally mention Lucy, who I think was she Asian?
The one with Joe.
With Joe, yeah, because
they go to leave,
because Stu says something about be good for Mom Lucy or whatever.
Yeah.
So, but in the book, Lucy was with Larry. And that's why he said no to Nadine, because he had already moved on to Lucy. And in the book, Lucy and Franny so it does jump. Stu and Tom come back. There's a little more to that, right? And he's like, what happened with the baby? Because he's very concerned that the baby's going to die. Everybody's very concerned about the baby dying.
Right.
And, so there's a little bit more there. But then it does jump to, I don't know specifically if it was 4th of July. It might have been, but essentially the same thing. They're having a party out.
Summer
outside, having a party, at picnic, whatever. And her and Lucy sit down. Lucy's now pregnant with Larry's child.
Right.
Even though Larry's dead,
gone,
that he's going to live on. And they have the conversation. So they're sitting there at the picnic and the baby's tottering around, and and they have that conversation about, Lucy's like, I can't believe you want to leave, and she kind of explains her feelings and her thinking,
right
instead of like showing everybody getting guns and it's noisy in the streets.
Yeah. In the conversation of, we have 3 people. The snow melted. We got 500 plus people that showed up.
Yeah.
And now we have 3 people
I don't know
in offices,
anybody.
and I don't know any of the faces.
Yeah,
and stuff
in jail.
like that.
Yeah.
And so I understand. I understand that conversation. Like, I understand that there's, because they've been living this one existence of Mother Abigail and going to New Vegas and like taking care of everybody. They've been living that. Now that it's all kind of self-perpetuating itself with more people being there and stuff like that. So I understand her, specifically Franny, having this pull to go home.
Right.
Even if it's just to go see the ocean and come back.
Right.
Like, I get that. And I can understand that. It just felt discombobulating.
Yeah.
That all of a sudden you're back. Let's go. And it's and there's so, now I understand that you have to do that to set up the Last Temptation, which is what Flag is doing to her.
Right. And so that's all completely new.
Right.
So they kind of sacrificed some other stuff. Tom and Stu coming home, and Franny making the decision, kind of how things have changed, whatever, instead of just kind of them saying things have changed, right? You're not actually witnessing it or feeling it with them.
Right.
They had to sacrifice all that to do this whole, none of that happens in the book.
From the way it was done, I'm not going to say storytelling wise, but the tension of being at the house in Nebraska with something obviously in the corn, watching, because it's always creepy when corn.
Stephen King has something about corn.
Right.
He's done a couple books about corn.
But that whole sequence and Franny falling into the well and Stu maybe the truck's like a brand new tire's got a flat on it after 500 or 600 miles or whatever, and is the truck going to fall over on them?
Yeah.
I love that tension. Like, it was uncomfortable, and that was cool. And then I love the scene with Franny and Flag, where Flag is introducing the island of the indigenous people. Indigenous. There's an S in there. I love that scene too, because he only exists if somebody's worshiping.
Right.
And him tempting her as much as he could is just trying one last ditch effort to stay in the world.
It's very Adam and Eve, right?
It's very Adam and Eve, and especially with the idea that you talk about God saying the world is always what it is. You have to keep going forward and be true to yourself and who your character is. I loved all that. I love that scene, and I love her biting his lip, and telling him off, and thou shalt get behind me, you fucking piece of shit. It was like a great line. I love that. So all of that was really good, and I like all of that. And then them, getting out of the well, and young Abigail is there, who was the one that was in the corn, and her healing her, and that whole conversation of them on the porch of the house. I really like that too. But if I take each individual part, I really like each individual part.
Yeah.
I just don't like him here.
Yeah.
I like these conversations 2 episodes ago.
Yeah.
Or the last 20 minutes after the bomb goes off in New Vegas. I this a whole episode. I think the shortest episode. It was like 45 minutes or 50 minutes or something like that. So this was the shortest episode, but it just felt like this is gonna be a really random whatever. One of our favorite shows was Falling Skies. Falling Skies with Noel Wiley about alien invasion. Much the same kind of principles are going on here. And they found out, just as they were going to do their 5th season, that they weren't going to get re-upped. And so they had to finish. But they only got money to do like 7 episodes and not the 10, 12 episodes that they needed. So they wrapped up 17 different storylines in 3.5 hours. Yeah. And it was and they just straight out ditched other stuff because they had to. Storytelling wise, they had their money wise, production wise, they had to. That's what this feels like. Yeah. And it really is making me angry the more we talk about it, because I have been enjoying the show. Yeah.
It's like they rushed along to get to that part and then kind of rushed to the end. I don't know. I mean, I guess the end is okay. Because that's I think they do kind of they end up having a bunch of kids, and they kind of they do that part that she tells her. But it's like
your 4 kids or 5 kids are going to have 20 kids, and those 20 kids are going to be the next 70, generation, or whatever. And
so they got that information in there, but it's like they rushed the whole beginning to get to that, and that was kind of drawn out, right? I mean,
that was like a nice
Stu
long
goes
pause.
To the drugstore and grabs like all the Motrin left in the world for a small child, and then he gets a flat, and she's doing the that was like 2/3 of the episode was that whole thing there.
I also want to point out, I don't know if you saw this, when he goes to the drugstore and the door is locked, but the bottom part of the door is broken out. So he goes in. There's like 17 pallets of water right next to the door. I have a huge problem with this. Like, I honestly have a huge problem with this. The drugstore is physically shown through the rest of it being ransacked. Yeah. There's 17 pallets of water next to the door.
I didn't even notice that.
Water. Yeah, like it's a me thing. Like, I work outside for a living in Arizona. I have water with me all the time. The first thing I'm taking when the apocalypse happens is a weapon and as much water as I can physically get. So we know that there's people out in the world still who survived Captain Trips. Yeah. Why did you not take the shelf full of Moltron and the water. Like,
well, maybe he did. They didn't show it. He scoops everything
no,
off the
I'm
shelves.
saying, saying before he even gets there.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And now it's a small town and blah 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 blah. Like, I get that, but it was just a small detail that just kind of got me, whatever.
Yeah.
But I just with this particular episode, I just felt I am so unsatisfied. He was just chick on me.
Yeah.
And I'm disappointed because as much as the show started off slow, I felt that it got better and better as the season went along.
Yeah.
And as we got along, and I felt like we needed this kind of bow on it, but this bow didn't feel like it was like they thought out the story to New Vegas.
Yeah.
To the bomb going off in New Vegas.
Yeah.
And then they were like, there's like another 100 pages left.
Yeah.
And the writer's room's like, well, we're fucked. What's the Cliff Notes version of that 100 pages?
Yeah.
And
how can we make that into something?
Yeah. A couple things that I do want to talk about with at least on a positive, like I said, like I like each individual scene and how they were all constructed. I think this might be the best that Alexander Skarsgård is in the whole series. Him trying to woo Franny and everything, like I really putting on the charm and everything. I really liked all of that. And then him, nice ass, by the way, with him naked going and
I would say it was a butt double, but no, it was
probably him.
I mean, he's from Switzerland or whatever, Sweden.
All of them are all like that.
They don't care.
They don't care. If any of the stories I've heard about the Skarsgård family parties are real,
oh yeah,
then they don't care. But so I really liked his performance, and I really liked Odessa Young, who played Franny in this episode. This was the Franny centric essentially episode, and her going to try with the well and stuff like that. I like that. I love that tension building.
Yeah.
She handled that really well and everything. Let's talk about the series overall real quick before we get out of here. I've said I really like the series until the end. But I'm also disappointed in how it ended. So it's going to affect how I feel overall. But I appreciate what they were trying to do. Again, 20, not 9. But how did you feel overall with the series?
We've talked about it. For the story that was told, it was okay. I don't know that I would watch it again.
Yeah, I have no care.
And that's saying a lot because I've watched the 90s one several times and I could watch it again.
Yeah.
And it's not great, but at least, I don't know, from a Stephen King-ophile, it followed the story better than...
I'm going to say something and we can debate it a little bit. This one has no soul.
Yeah. I don't think so.
The 93 one, the 94 one, or whatever year it was, that one had soul to it. And although it's not, the production standards weren't great, it was, 90s TV. So there's it's single cam a lot and not a lot of special effects. And they spent all their money on Fremont Street.
Yeah.
But there's soul to that. And you feel invested in that story.
Yeah.
This, although I like the bigness and scope and being in Maine and Nebraska and Vegas and like being everywhere and all that stuff, it just feels a little soulless. Actually, a lot soulless.
Yeah, there just wasn't enough diving into the characters for you to, again in the books. And in the 90s miniseries, you feel for Glenn and Larry, and you just you're like, cool.
Yeah, everybody, all the actors who were in this did a really good job.
Yeah,
I thought most everybody was cast pretty well outside of Hinkie, that Brad William Hinkie that played Tom Collin. We've talked about that in the previous episode that. He does a good job. I think he does a good job, but they could have brought somebody with
with a disability,
disability.
and and
the kid from Peanut Butter Falcon would have nailed this role.
Yeah.
like
yes, give him more
yeah,
roles.
he's a good actor, and he would have been great in this role. But I like the production value. I liked the cinematography. I like the music. I like the acting. But the some of the parts don't give it any soul.
Yeah. Yep. Pretty much like this episode. Just you like all the pieces, but not how they got put together.
And maybe my overall view of the series is directly affected by what this episode is.
I think we probably would have felt
finished.
better about it if there had been if the ending had turned out better.
Yeah.
But it's like meh.
Anything else you want to talk about?
No.
That's our thoughts on the finale of The Stand on CBS All Access. We can get rid of that now.
That's true. Although it's turned into Paramount.
That's true. So let us know what you thought of episode 9 called The Circle Closes, which was the finale of The Stand. Let us know in the comments down below. Please be nice as a requirement around here. And like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, and follow us on all the social media stuff, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. What am I saying? And until the next show, WandaVision, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, cult members.